Good evening. My name is Tom Payton, and I'd like to welcome everyone this evening to our first of a series of town hall events for newly published book, Dear America. I'm the publisher at Trinity University Press. And first, I'd like to welcome all of our participants. We'll come back to formal introductions in just a moment, but I'd especially like to welcome all of the folks joining us via Zoom webinar as well as other platforms tonight. I'm told we have almost 300 people registered for the event this evening officially, and we are live streaming it as well through Facebook. So if you're enjoying the program and so inclined, jump on Facebook and you can find the link through Trinity University Press and share it with your friends live, or they could watch it recorded later as well. It was an honor, I guess a little over a year ago, or about a year ago, to learn about this project and subsequently have conversations with our good friends at terrain.org regarding their nationally claimed Letters to America project that turned into this just released, but important and timely, inspirational, and humbling at the same time, new book, an anthology collection of about 130 contributors, from which we have several with us this evening. I'll jump to some mechanics real quickly and then introduce Simmons Buntin so that we can proceed with the program. The book itself is available at a website which you saw on a title card to begin with, and you'll see again at the end, dearamericabook.org. As a participant in this town hall, there's a special discount available, and we encourage you to take advantage of that. More so, I'd like to point out that the three editors at Terrain and editors for the book have generously donated the royalties on all sales of the book to three really important organizations, as we know: the ACLU, the National Resources Defense Council, and the Union of Concerned Scientists. Accordingly, we encourage you to order and buy your book wherever you feel so inclined. But if you order through this site that we're providing, the highest revenue goes to those three organizations. So please support those organizations that way. Again, it was an honor to have the opportunity to publish this wonderful new book, Dear America, with our friends at Terrain. And I'm glad you're with us tonight, and I would like to introduce Simmons Buntin, the co-editor of terrain.org and co-editor of the book itself, to continue with our program this evening. Simmons.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks to everybody for joining us here on this beautiful Earth Day. At least it's beautiful down here in the Sonoran Desert, where I must admit this is probably the first time I've ever hosted a reading in my bare feet, but it feels right today, I think, for that. I'm honored and delighted to be joined by four amazing thinkers and writers and defenders of the earth this evening: Alison Hawthorne Deming, Wall Kimmerer, Ellen Bass, and Naomi Shihab Nye. I want to let you know that following the reading, and you've probably seen the Q&A button below, we're going to have about 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A. So feel free to throw a question on there during or after the readings, and we'll do our best to get to your questions in our limited time to do that. So if I want to talk a little bit more, I guess, than what Tom has mentioned about Dear America, the book, which is a collection of 130 letters that began with a single letter from our reader this evening, Alison Hawthorne Deming, who submitted a letter to us just after the 2016 presidential election. Since that time, terrain.org has published 179 letters to America online, including this morning's letter by Deborah Thompson. So check that out if you get a chance at terrain.org. The book is co-edited by me and Elizabeth Dodd and Derek Sheffield, and includes 80 letters that originally appeared in terrain.org. 90 letters, and then 50 new letters, whatever the math is. There's a lot of new letters in there, and it's a pretty wonderful collection. I think as you'll hear this evening, you know, when I say letters, really, I mean prose and poetry and artwork, letters that I think speak to patriotism in its most natural and moral and essential sense in a time when that's really what we need, which is to say, I think it is a book of hope, habitat, defiance, and democracy And if I didn't add this now, Tom and the others at Trinity University Press will be mad. Let me just say you may purchase it at a discount through this month at dearamericabook.org. And I think there's a discount code that's Town Hall for that. So enough about me and Dear America. Let's turn it over to the folks I know you're excited to hear read. And they're going to read in this order: Alison, and then Robin, and then Ellen, and then Naomi. And I'll introduce them before their readings. So Alison Hawthorne Deming's most recent books are Zoologies on Animals and the Human Spirit, and the poetry collection Stairway to Heaven. Winner of a Guggenheim Fellowship, she is a Regents Professor at the University of Arizona. Alison, take it away.
Thank you so much. Simmons, my co-readers, all that came to join us today on a day. I think Earth Day is kind of a sacred day. It's a day of ritual where everybody makes up what ritual they want to honor the earth and to speak for collective action. So I'm just thrilled that we could launch this book today together and with all of you who come to join us. I'm going to start with the letter that I sent to Simmons just a few days after the election in November 2016 in a heat of despair and outrage, and made a modest call, I thought modest, for others to raise their voices to the cause that I tried to articulate in this letter. And I just want to express so much gratitude to all those people who have given those voices to this project and who continue to. I could not have imagined a more beautiful response to this call. So thank you, thank you. Please let them come more and more. Dear America, the heat is just beginning to wane here in Arizona in the November, ending the hottest 5 years on record. I've had to adjust my inner thermostat too, living here in terrain associated in many of the world's religions with spiritual testing. The election results threaten to undermine every cause that I, as an educator, poet, and essayist, have worked for in the past 50 years. Women's rights, civil rights, environmental justice, science literacy, civil discourse, and empathy, and underlying all, the informed and reflective thinking required for democracy to thrive. Only 25% of the American electorate voted for Donald Trump. That means 75% of Americans did not vote for deportation of Mexicans, banning of Muslims, denigrating and denying science, wasting this glorious planet for the sake of personal and corporate gain, hate speech, racist and misogynist words and deeds, or autocratic decision-making. The reasons that only 25% of Americans voted for Hillary Clinton will become more clear with analysis, though some elements of this outcome, I suspect, will remain opaque. The reasons that the remaining 50% of Americans did not vote for any candidate include despair, cynicism, principle, and challenges to the right to vote. I will not castigate non-voters. I will praise them for not voting for a dangerous, ill-informed, disrespectful, undignified, greedy, and hate-filled bully. The fact that 75% of Americans did not vote for this candidate makes clear that Trump values are not American values. This vote says that whatever the reasons might have been for not voting, we need you now to avow your majority position in being publicly vigilant, articulate, respectful of difference, and caring toward the most vulnerable among our people and creatures with whom we share the planet. We have seen language used to manipulate people, distort reality, deny facts, and betray our American ideals of liberty and justice. We need now to believe in the power of language to help us connect across our differences, express empathy, form new alliances, fuel our better natures, and live more fully the values we espouse. Surely, surprising acts of resistance will arise, and have, from the spirit of resilience and solidarity, energized by this dangerous turn in American leadership. Maybe all the women who attend what was then called the Million Woman March in Washington should wear the hijab in solidarity with those who feel the very real vulnerability arising from the threatening rhetoric of the campaign. I think of this remembering the symbolic power of an action taken just days after the terrorist attacks in Paris in November 2015, when public protests were banned. 10,000 pairs of shoes were lined up in the Place de la République, shoes from Pope Francis, shoes from the Dalai Lama, shoes of the living and shoes of the dead. They stood in for the 200,000 people anticipated to gather on Paris streets ahead of the Paris Climate Summit. Sure, take to the streets, sign petitions, move to a red state and run for the school board, donate to organizations that work on the local level and promote human rights. Think of the great spirit of inventiveness the earth calls forth after each major disturbance it suffers. Be artful, inventive, and just, my friends, but do not be silent.
Thank you so much, Alison. That is such a powerful, amazing letter. And really, it has spurred, I think, this whole response. You know, we've heard so many readers saying thank you to Alison and for this series for helping us deal with how we felt, especially right after the election. It actually reminds me of my daughter calling several times up in Flagstaff. I'm down in Tucson when the results of the election came in, crying, saying, how can this be? How can this be? And me saying, oh, it'll change. The numbers aren't fully in yet. And then, of course, the results didn't. And then when Alison's letter came out, that gave us a little hope, a little faith, and the know-how really not to be silent. So thank you. It's my pleasure now to introduce Robin Wall Kimmerer. Potawatomi, I didn't say that right, Potawatomi, is a grandmother, professor of botany, and founding director of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment at the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry. She tends gardens, domesticated and wild, on an old farm in upstate New York. Robin, thank you for joining us.
Everybody being here. Oh, am I unmuted? Yes, thank you. The Zoom question of the hour. Happy Earth Day to all of you. You know, this is always for me a day when I feel torn of what should I do today? What should I do? And I was working out on the land with some invasive species today. I was working with my students today, and to end with you all here is powerful. So thank you for this collection. And Alison, thank you for the initiation of this call that so many writers have answered, and I know so many listeners are motivated by. When I was talking to students today as part of my Earth Day observance, there was actually a really timely question. A young student said, you know, your writing, Dr. Kemmerer, is so kind. Do you ever take a sharper tone? I'm like, yes. The Wendigo. Dear readers, America, colonists, allies, and ancestors to be. We've seen that face before. The drape of frost-stiffened hair, the white-rimmed eyes peering out from behind the tanned hide of a human-like mask, the flitting gaze that settles only when it finds something of true interest in a mirror. Cruel eyes, a false face, and a demeanor of ravening hunger, despite the unconscionable hoarding of excess while others go without. The spittle quickly licked away from the sly fox in the henhouse smirk that sends chills down your spine, a mouth that howls lies, pretending it's an anthem. And Americans keep acting surprised by the daily assault on American values once thought unassailable. I don't speak for all Native people, but we've smelled that carrion breath before. We know who this is. The one whose hunger is never slaked. The more he consumes, the hungrier he grows. We've met him on our shores, at the Thanksgiving table, at the treaty table, at the greasy grass, on the riverbank of Standing Rock, and in the courts. His mask doesn't fool us. And having so little left to lose, and all that is precious to protect, I call him the name of the monster that my ancestors spoke of around the winter campfire, the embodied nightmare of greed, the Wendigo. We know him. Perhaps this is why he has taken special efforts to poke Indigenous peoples in the eye, because we see him. He has proven himself an equal opportunity offender to people Black and brown. But with the spite of bullies everywhere, he has sharpened his stick with special vindictiveness for Native people from the first days of his administration, by reversing the glimpse of justice we held for one shining moment at Standing Rock, to dishonoring the code talkers, to undermining treaty obligations, threatening termination for our people, to casting Pocahontas' name as a slur that manages to taint every stereotype across a range of Indigenous identities, to denying protection for Gwich'in livelihoods, to sending drill rigs to penetrate sacred land. He is the obscene of the Anthropocene, the colon of colonization, the grinder of salt into the original wound of this country. But lest I spend any more words on cathartic name calling, let me say that Wendigo is the name for that which cares more for itself than for anything else. It shrieks with unmet want, consumed with consumption. It lays waste to humankind and to our more than human kin. Wendigo tales arose in a commons-based society where sharing was a survival value and greed made you a danger to the whole. But in a profit-based society, the indulgent self-interest that our people once held as monstrous is now celebrated as success. Americans are called on to admire what our people viewed as unforgivable. The particular weapon of the Wendigo in chief is the executive pen, used against what has always been the most precious, the most contested wealth of Turtle Island, the land. And with the stroke of that pen, he has declared that oil is life, and that protecting the audacious belief that water is life could earn you a jail sentence. That same pen gutted the only national monument designated by Native people to safeguard a sacred cultural landscape, the Bear's Ears. In opening those protected lands for uranium mining, he triumphantly claimed that he was returning public land to the people. From his origins as a real estate developer to his incarnation as Wendigo in chief, he has regarded public lands, our forests, our grasslands, our rivers, national parks, wildlife reserves, all as a warehouse of potential commodities to be sold to the highest bidder. Let us remember together that what the United States calls public land, and if the truth be told, all of what the United States calls private property as well, are in fact ancestral lands. They are the ancestral homelands of 562 different Indigenous peoples. A time-lapse map of North America would show the original lands of sovereign peoples diminishing in the onslaught of colonization and the conversion from tribal lands to public lands. Some through treaty making, some through treaty breaking, some through illegal sale, and some through what were termed just wars, by executive action and by encroachment. You know this. Not only was the land taken and her people replaced, but colonization is also the intentional erasure of the original worldview, substituting the definitions and meanings of the colonizer. That time-lapse map of land taking would also show the replacement of the indigenous idea of land as a commonly held gift with the notion of private property. While the battle between land as sacred home and land as capital stained the ground red. Of course, our ideas were dangerous to the idea of manifest destiny, resisting the lie that the highest use of our public land is extraction. They stood in the way of converting a living, inspirited land into parcels of natural resources. Native people have a different term for public lands. We call them home. We call them our sustainer, our library, our pharmacy, our sacred places. Indigenous identity and language are inseparable from land. Land is the residence of our more than human relatives. It is the place of the dust of our ancestors, the holder of seeds, the makers of rain, our teacher. Land is not capital to which we have property rights. Rather, it is the place for which we have moral responsibility in reciprocity for its gift of life. And here is the question that together we have to at last confront. Is land a source of belongings, or is it the source of our most profound sense of belonging? We can choose. Our ancestors had a remedy for the Wendigo sickness and the contagion that it spreads. Those who endangered life with their greed were banished from the circle of everything that they would destroy. They were cast out from the firelight and the bubbling stew pot, from care and from community. You colonists also have that power of banishment. Will you use it? It's not enough to banish the Wendigo himself. He must also heal the contagion he has spread. You, right now, can choose to set aside the mindset of the colonizer and choose instead to become native to place. You can choose to belong. Colonists, you've been here long enough to watch the prairies disappear, to witness the genocide of redwoods, to see water poisoned by the sickness of Wendigo thinking. The Wendigo has no moral compass. His needle swings wildly between the magnetism of whatever prophet beckons. Surely, however, the land has taught you differently, too. That in a time of great polarity and division, the common ground we crave is in fact right beneath our feet. The very land on which we stand is our foundation and can be a source of shared identity and a source of common cause. What could be more common and shared than the land that gives us all life? Rivers don't ask for party affiliation before giving you a drink, and berries don't withhold their gifts from anyone. The moral compass guiding right relationship with land still remains strong in pockets of traditional peoples. The sharp stick of the bully in the White House only hardens our resolve. The needle still points faithfully north to what we call in my language, Giwedenong, the going home star. When we acknowledge the truth that all public land is in fact ancestral land, we must acknowledge that by dint of history and time and biogeochemistry that unites us all, your dust and your grandchildren's dust will mingle here. They will know what you do here. They will reap the consequences of whether you choose to banish Wendigo thinking. You could follow the going home star and make a home here, grounded in justice for land and people. Because colonists become ancestors too. The question is, what kind of ancestor do you want to be? Miigwech.
Thank you, Robin, for that amazing and yes, angry but essential letter. Thank you. It is my pleasure now to introduce Ellen Bass, who is celebrating her newest poetry book, Indigo, from Copper Canyon Press. Her poems appear frequently in the New Yorker and the American Poetry Review and many other journals. She is a chancellor of the Academy of American Poets and teaches in Pacific University's MFA program. Ellen?
Well, this is a good place to be on Earth Day, and thank you for everyone who's made this project and this anthology possible. So important. And thank you everybody who is here with us today, wanting to share and remind each other of what our deepest values and commitments and necessities are. It's good to be with you all. I want to start by reading a poem by somebody else in this incredible anthology, Dear America. It's by Dana Sonnenschein, and it's called Let Sleeping Wolves Lie. Dear America, let sleeping wolves sprawl in the brightness of summer afternoons, jaws wide, tongues lolling. Let them paw down to cooler dirt and shape themselves to match that bowl of shadow till night rises past the rim. Let wolves break trail through snowdrifts. Let them lope along roads. Let them circle and curl through blizzards. Noses nestled in tail fur, drifting into darkness as starry crystals fall across their flanks. Let sleeping wolves lie in mist and morning rain, guard hairs sinking toward gray undercoats. Let wolves dream runoff along ridge and slope, and wake, rise, and shake the water from their backs in a storm of drops. Let it rain, and let the wolves lick their sleek forelegs, drinking from the sky. Let wolves be wolves, coursers of deer and elk, and let beef cattle be cattle, as they once were, big-shouldered, nervy, all sharp hoof, horn, and instinct to turn, mass, and face what hunts them, to charge a threat, not run. Let the lowing herds roam, grazing on ranch land that someone owns, not in sheltered basins where elk winter over, not in protected thickets or forests. Let there be no salt licks near dens, no helicopters with guns. Fence in the cows during calving season, flag the live wires, send riders singing down the line as dawn bleeds through and at dusk, when hungry packs awaken and stretch their legs in the long light. Watch over those golden hours, America, but let sleeping wolves lie. And then I'm going to read a poem of mine that's included in Dear America. It's called The Red-Bellied Woodpecker's Tongue. Dear America, I've always wanted to tell you about the red-bellied woodpecker's marvelous tongue. Maybe you already know. Or perhaps you're not interested. There's so much that requests your attention these summer days. Sweet corn ripening in its humid silks, the rim of salt on a margarita, the 100 best-selling items on Amazon, curtain rods, stroller gloves, dog jerky treats. And then there are hungry children in cages. This morning I looked at a photo of one girl, a strand of dark hair blown across her cheek, stuck there, damp. She could have been any little girl crying. There was no barbed wire, no piles of shoes, no gold teeth mounded, but she wasn't. Maybe nobody knows how long she's been crying. America, if you're quiet enough, you can hear her. I'm old now, the age of children whose parents almost but didn't perish in Dachau or Buchenwald. My grandfather came here, America. The plan was to send money back to his wife and children in Germany, but he was too slow. I've never known hunger. I don't mean when I didn't have time to grab a bite on the way to Concourse G. Is it wrong to still be thrilled by a bird's tongue? I believe you're exhausted, America. You work 2 jobs, the baby's teething, and your father died. Someone backing up in the hospital parking lot just cracked your taillight. But maybe you'd spare a slow exhalation to consider the fleshy organ of this small citizen. This high-tech appendage, almost as long as the bird's smoke gray body, must somehow be packed inside its head. So the cunning tongue forks in the throat, one side wrapping around the jaw, up and over the brain, and then the halves rejoin and circle the eye socket. Really. So when the hungry woodpecker taps into a tunnel dug by a beetle, it contracts the muscles of its jaw, propelling the tongue to slither through the galleries and skewer a grub. Then it relaxes its jaw, and the tongue winds up like a retractable clothesline. Then it relaxes its jaw. I just read that. And the tongue winds up again like a retractable clothesline. It took a lot of time for the kingdoms of DNA to dream up this flying shred of existence that weighs as much as a fat letter sent from the late Oligocene. Fossils of small birds, diminutive engines mounting and amending as the centuries surged. And now do we speak about extinctions? Should we rattle the numbers? The million species that 145 experts from 50 countries tell us may be doomed in the next few decades. Or do we abide with the sumptuous tongue of the bird, reveling in its brilliant elaboration? I'm terrified, and maybe you're terrified too. But for the space of the poem, could we allow ourselves this swath of elegance and purpose, a moment to recline into the joy of description, so we can observe that the belly of the red-bellied woodpecker isn't really red, not nearly as red as its scarlet head. Its belly is more like a slight blush, like a creature that's modest about its riotous beauty, its riotous success. Oh, it might say, if it could talk, and if it bothered to, oh, this old tongue, it's nothing really, just something I picked up a few million years ago. And I'll end with a small poem, a true story from my new book. I'll just show it to you because I think it could win a beauty contest just for the cover. Kiss. When Lynn saw the lizard floating in her mother-in-law's swimming pool, she jumped in. And when it wasn't breathing, its body limp as a baby drunk on milk, she laid it on her palm and pressed one fingertip to its silky breast with just about the force you need to test the ripeness of a peach, only quicker. A brisk little push with a bit of spring in it. Then she knelt, dripping wet in her Doc Martens and camo t-shirt with the neck ripped out, and bent her face to the lizard's face, her big plush lips to the small stiff jaw that she'd pried apart with her opposable thumb, and she blew a tiny puff into the lizard's lungs. The sun glared against the turquoise water. What did it matter if she saved one lizard more or less in the world? But she bestowed the kiss of life again and again until the lizard's wrinkled lids peeled back, its muscles roused its own first breath, and she set it on the hot cement where it rested a moment before darting off.
Wonderful, Ellen. Thank you for your poems and for reading Dana's poem as well. I now am going to introduce our last reader. Naomi Shihab Nye is the Young People's Poet Laureate and the poetry editor of the New York Times Magazine. She is on the faculty at Texas State University. Naomi?
Thank you so much, Simmons. And I'm still feeling my breath taken away by the lizard darting away from that kiss, the breath of life. What a beautiful poem, Ellen, to hear on Earth Day. Thank you. Thanks to all the readers. Thanks to you, Simmons, and to Elizabeth and Derek for creating such a beautiful book. And thank you to Trinity University Press. We are so grateful to you for all you do for us here in San Antonio, where I am, and for writers worldwide. Thank you for this book to have alongside us in these days of so many emotions and plenty of time to read. So I'm going to read two pieces. The longer piece is by Amy Nez Hukumatatil, the beloved Amy. And I really feel a strong feeling about reading this piece tonight because of the immigration orders that have come out, the insults to immigrants, whether dreaming of coming here or already here. And Amy has written such a beautiful piece called Something Like Tenderness. I was born a snapdragon from a burst of seeds knocked clean by a rabbit escaping a fox. When our skull-shaped seed pods are crispy and ready to shake, they spit seed. And when the fox had his catch by the neck, I could do nothing but grow tipped to light in a bit of blood rain. America, I am your good brown friend. For many of you, I am the only brown friend you have. How I love being your good brown friend. Very good, very brown. Many of you tell me you don't see color, as if we're colorless, transparent, or rather as if we're clear like Zima, Pepsi Clear, hair gel, a varnish, seltzer, a gloss. A few years ago in Florida, my Catholic Indian father had a full can of pop thrown at his head from a pickup truck while the driver screamed, "Go home, Muslim terrorist." He has lived in America since 1969, longer in America than India, his birthplace. 1969. Other people in the parking lot just stopped and stared. Some hurried to their cars or inside the store. The next day, my parents went out and bought flag decals to plaster all over their cars. America, for over 40 years before he retired as an award-winning and patient favorite respiratory therapist, my father has helped mostly white geriatric folks and white NICU babies breathe. He's missed some of my sisters and my birthdays, plays, concerts, and tennis matches because he was helping white people breathe. He was helping white people breathe. He helped white people breathe even when his eldest daughter pouted when he missed yet another one of her tennis matches. He helped white people breathe for 40 years. America, for over 40 years, before she retired from being an acclaimed psychiatrist, my mother was helping mostly white people with their mental health, suffering verbal and sometimes physical assault from her unstable patients. And still my parents worked those jobs, even when the very people they were taking care of screeched racist slurs right to their faces. Yes, my parents received paychecks, but they didn't have to stay in those often rural places where they were needed most. They could have stayed in big cities with even bigger paychecks, but they love small town America, even when it doesn't love them back. They love small town America, even when it doesn't love them back. I know many of you don't interact with many brown people. Why is that? And I'm one of your only sources of actual lived experience as a brown woman. Again, why is that? And I'm here to say any violence or harassment toward me and my family was never, ever done by someone with brown skin. Senior year in college, I had to go to court to get a restraining order because a white coworker broke into my dorm room several times. The last time, I was there sleeping when he broke in. I didn't have my glasses on, so you can imagine my terror. I screamed and screamed for my life. Oh, how I can scream when I need to save myself. First year grad school, the two men who attacked me while I was walking on campus in the middle of the humid morning in Tallahassee during my first year were white. In the middle of the morning, I was mailing a letter to my parents to tell them I was okay. It happened on my way back to my apartment after the envelope was safely nestled in the blue mailbox with so many other letters to parents telling them they were okay too. I sometimes wonder what happened to that letter. Did it fly away? My parents never told me they received it. I'll stop there with Amy's piece, Something Like Tenderness. Again, I hope you'll get this book so you can finish reading Amy's piece, but it's by Amy Nez Hukumatatl, and it's an exquisite piece. And I have found this book very helpful in dealing with sensations of rage that we suffer sometimes in response to news stories. I will not dedicate my piece to Jared Kushner, but it's called Invitation to the NSA. Feel free to scrutinize my messages. Welcome. Have fun fanning through my private thoughts on drones, the Israeli army chopping down olive trees, endless wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, horrific from the get-go, and we told you so, but no one listened because there was a lot of money and oomph in it. So feel free to listen now. Bombs have no mothers. That is an insult to mothers. See what I think about Bashar Assad versus the children of Syria. Pass it on, please. Or weapons in general. The George W. Bush Library in Dallas, which I refused to drive my mother past. I like the sense of you looking over our shoulders, lifting up the skirts of our pages, peering under my fury at how you forget Palestine again and again, forget the humble people there, never calling them the victimized innocents as you call others. You forget your promises, forget religion, thou shalt not kill, and yet you kill in so many ways. So what do we care? You might as well see what we say. Thank you, terrain.org and Dear America.
Thank you, Naomi, for reading Amy Nez's poem and for your own very powerful poem as well. And I don't know how we get a round of applause on Zoom, but we definitely need a round of applause for all of the wonderful, amazing readers this evening. So thank you all very much. We do have some time, maybe 15 minutes or so, for questions for our town hall portion of this event now. And I see a few questions have come in, so I'm gonna start with those, and then ask you all who we can see to answer, and who we can't see, if you have questions, to shoot them up there. I probably won't be able to get them all, but we'll start with this one. So during this time, how are you all staying connected to your writing, to nature, to your communities? Alison?
Oh, Well, it's all become very two-dimensional, hasn't it? I think that many of us are experiencing a strange condition where we're connecting more and more because we're unable to connect in the customary ways. So we, Zoom cocktail hours and Zoom, social hours and lots of opportunities to find new ways to have connections that aren't nearly as satisfying as being able to throw your arms around dear friends and have a meal with them. But so I think that it is a mark of our resilience and need for one another that we're inventing. Even in my neighborhood, people are walking, and I probably said hello to more neighbors than I have in the last 5 years from at least 6 feet distance. So everyone is very warm and friendly as they cross the street to get away from you. So it's bizarre. And like everybody I talk to, my students and friends and colleagues, focus is very hard right now. Much of our energy is being taken with the emotion and anguish of the suffering that we know is going on around us. And for some of us in our families and others, we know there's a great deal of suffering happening, and the emotion is exhausting. So how do we cope? Naps, reading, forgiving myself for being slothful some days, rising to the occasion if a poem should come knock on the door. It's a hard time for all of us, no question.
Thank you. Robin, Ellen, Naomi, any thoughts? Anything to add?
I would add that I feel while we are socially and physically distanced, I feel this tremendous impulse to reach out to old friends, and no one asks why. Why are you calling? We just want to connect. We just want to hear each other's voices, and it makes me long for that in another part of my life. I'm having a very hard time writing, very hard time. I really can't focus very well. And so in addition to, my teaching online, which is almost over, I am spending just as much time outdoors as I can, with my plant relatives, watching spring come out in upstate New York, working out on the land. And part of it, I feel like I want to tire myself out, exhaust myself, so that I don't go to cycles of worry. So it is, I should say, on Earth Day, a tremendous gratitude for the solace of the land.
Thank you.
I've also felt that, Robin, the solace of the land. And I think about a quote from Henry David Thoreau, to watch the sun rise or go down every day would help keep a person sane forever. And I think many of us have been more tuned in, since we're staying in our houses all the time, or in our yards if we're lucky enough to have one, to the changing of the light, and the light on the wall and on the floor of a room, and just paying a kind of different attention to all of the exquisite elements of earth and sky that keep us going. And I feel a lot of grief and concern for people who don't have any little plot of earth that they feel safe to go be in. Because I think that would be extremely difficult during a time like this. Just as it would be difficult to have no means by which to call our old friends and be in touch with them. So probably being very grateful for these things that are right nearby that help us stay a little bit steady anyway.
Yeah, boy, I second that. We have a backyard, and I live in Santa Cruz near the ocean. And if I get up really early, there are very few people out. So I can get down there and see the ocean. 2 days ago, there was a mother whale with her calf, and we could tell it was a mother and calf because the mother had a really big spout and the calf had a really little spout. And if you can have the fortune to see something like that, you just can make it through the whole rest of the day, and a few days after that. So my sympathy and care sure goes out to everybody who can only look out, a window and maybe get a peek. So we also are harvesting mushrooms in our backyard. We've always had a garden, but we've never had mushrooms. And I'm just so excited about these mushrooms that it's all I've been thinking about when I have a spare moment. They're so amazing. And poetry. Wow. I mean, poetry. I mean, I've been in the world of poetry my whole life, and I've always had such a passion and respect for it, but I don't think I ever knew how robust, how malleable, how willing poems are. I mean, boy, they're like a weed. And, I had this book coming out, and it was this small thing, in terms of the world, and even small in terms of my own life. But I thought, oh, well, there goes my book launch. And then it turned out that poetry is just willing to go anywhere, anyway, however. And it makes me think about people who have written poems from prison and from all kinds of exile, and had poems that they knew by heart and could say to themselves in those circumstances. And I just feel so grateful for poetry, which is something that we can pretty much all have anywhere, on a scrap of paper or in our minds and hearts.
Yes, thank you. And I think that ties a bit to this next question, which really ties to the overall book as well, and Dear America, ending with the subtitle on democracy. So could you each speak a little about patriotism, how you understand it, whether it influences your writing, whether it's a positive role to play in contemporary US politics? Robin, why don't we start with you?
I'm really happy for that question, because it has, especially now in the era in which we live, right? This era of xenophobia and flag waving that might make one cringe. I want to claim that I love this land. I love these people. I feel like I am a deeply patriotic person in terms of love of homeland, and the love of the vision of the ideals that we espouse. And one of the things that I find powerful in this collection is permission for that love of land, absent xenophobia, absent America first. So thank you for evoking that and creating a space of permission.
Thank you. Alison?
Yeah, I love that, Robin. So, one of the things I love about this title, Dear America, of course, they're letters, and so it's a form of address. Dear America, like Dear Billy Bob. But it also is an adjective. That America is dear to us. And America is dear to me. What's happening to it, in the way it's being defiled, in the way its aspirations are being defiled, in the way its land and creatures are being defiled, its people and newcomers are being defiled. All of that is it's a horrible thing to happen when you hold something very dear. And I think that for me, I feel deeply patriotic to the best of what America has always hoped to be, despite its terrible failings and its brutalities. There has always been this great strain of we can be better, we could be better. And for me, that is somehow rooted and inspired by the beauty and power of this continent. We have a magnificent homeland. You think of our national parks, you think of backyards, you think of even in the cities where there are trees, and you'll have a red-tailed hawk that's suddenly nesting on the edge of Central Park in New York City. And now with the streets more quiet, we see some wild animals, you know, mountain lions in Boulder, Colorado, in the suburbs. This land is one in which the richness of animal life and the beauty of the landscape and the variety of landscapes, the brilliance of all the coping mechanisms among the flora and fauna are a source of inspiration for us. And then they speak about diversity, they speak about interrelationship. And so I am inspired by America, and I want its sense of democracy to rise and to hold on to that beauty as a source of our better actions, if that can be.
Mm.
Thank you.
Mm.
Ellen, what do the whales, the mother whale and her calf, tell us of patriotism?
They don't identify with a particular country. And I think that at the deepest level, I don't. My father came to this country from Russia. My mother's mother came from Lithuania, and this was the land of safety and opportunity. They fled pogroms. And so, of course, I grew up as, you know, this is the just very best, safest country to be in. And this is where all the American dream can come true. And I feel, as all of us here do, the terrible devastation of what has, the way our country has, it seems very quickly, although I know it wasn't quick, it was a process. So much of what we've lost, and also, you know, Robin, I mean, my experience coming here as a land of safety and the Native American experience of being colonized are, you know, just, you know, absolutely clashing in that kind of a way. So each of us has such a unique experience. But although I love this land, I love where I live now, I love where I lived on the East Coast, I don't think I have a sense of patriotism in the way maybe many people do. I really feel like it's this whole earth now. I mean, it just feels like one earth, one planet to me.
Mm.
So I'm glad I'm not speaking last, because maybe that's, you know, not the right thing to say as the last thing on patriotism, but that's how I feel, honestly.
Well, thank you. It's certainly not the wrong thing to say. So, Naomi, what do you think?
Well, Ellen, I appreciate what you say. I appreciate what you all say so much. And I think this particular moment, these many weeks of shining a light on kind of people's better selves, their best selves, their bravest selves, as well as a certain kind of duplicity and defilement. I think one of you, Alison, used the word defiled. And that sense of what is really happening, the greed, the selfishness in some quarters versus the incredible selflessness, devotion to humanity in others. I think things are being made quite visible. And right now we have nothing but time to be watching them and thinking about them. So as a writer and as an American citizen, I feel very patriotic toward people's best selves and toward a global society, which, I mean, this has been a global pandemic. And to think about people in so many different countries being trapped in their spaces. I've been receiving messages from friends in Cyprus and people in Gaza and the West Bank, what it's like in different circumstances and communities to be put under this kind of isolation. And many people are suffering much, much more than we are, and having a stronger, stringent rules placed upon them. But I think this causes us to shine a spotlight on humanity's best possibility. And certainly all of the doctors and nurses and first responders receive the greatest gratitude from all of us that we have ever felt toward them. And this has given us time to look at greed for what it is too.
Mhm.
I guess, can I say one last thing? M- uh, my wife is a great Earth Day lover, and she just had to put up a big banner in front of our house today, and it said, if we can do this, we can save the earth. And the thing that I think about is, certainly for me, if you had asked me 2 months ago if I would do even 1/100th of what I'm doing now, I would say, oh no, that's just not possible. And look at what we've been willing to do and able to do, the kinds of changes that we've made in this lightning speed that
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would ever believed so many people would
Yeah.
actually do. That
Yeah.
it seems so possible to
Yeah.
do the things that are necessary to save this earth, this precious earth.
I feel the same way. I feel we are seeing that most people are willing and able to make tremendous sacrifices for the common good, and most people trust science and listen to science. If climate change ever needed a bigger boost, COVID-19 is it.
Yes.
You know, in many respects, which is sad, but also there are lessons here that we can carry forward.
Well, thank you. I think that is a really beautiful place to end this reading, this town hall. I want to really thank Alison Hawthorne Deming, Robin Wall Kimmerer, Ellen Bass, and Naomi Shihab Nye for your letters to the book, for your time with us this evening. I also want to thank everybody who joined us for this virtual town hall. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your Earth Day. And join us again next month, May 20th, when we'll have another session. Oh, and don't forget, again, the press will not be happy if I forget this, that you can go to dearamericabook.org to purchase a copy of what is, yes, I'm biased, but a pretty amazing collection
Right.
at a discount rate using altogether town hall.
All together now.
You guys are awesome. Wait a minute. I got one here too. Thank you all so very much and have a wonderful Earth evening.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Good night.
Night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Nice to be with you.
So good to
Thank
be
you
with
so
you.
much.
Mm.
Good.
Thank you for your voices.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes.
you, Simmons.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Love.
But I can unmute myself.